Hi everybody, here we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations by factoring. Example number 1, we're going to use the square root property. Now, here we have x squared is equal to 49. Now, the meaning of solving the equation is finding simply x, not x squared. So how can we find simply x? We take the opposite operation. The opposite of operation of the power of 2 is taking the square root. Okay, now we're going to take the square root of both sides. This will be the square root of x squared equals positive or negative the square root of 49. And don't forget this positive or negative. Positive or negative, why? Because this x squared, for example, it can be 2. 2 squared is 4. And it can be at the same time negative 2, because negative 2 squared is still 4. Of course, the square root of anything squared cancels the square symbol alone, which is x equals to positive or negative 7. يبقى positive or negative 7. The second problem, we have y squared equals 144. We're going to do the same thing. Take the square root to cancel the square. But the square root of y squared equals positive or negative the square root of 144. Now, the square root of y squared is simply y. And this is equal to positive or negative 12. Okay, here, number 3. We're going to proceed a little bit more in the lesson. Here we have y plus 5 all squared equals 9. So in order to get rid of this squared 2, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of y plus 5 all squared equals positive or negative the square root of 9. Now, the square root of y plus 5 all squared, the squared is cancelled by the square root. So, it leaves me with y plus 5 equals positive or negative 3. Now, we have two equations. We have y plus 5 equals 3 or y plus 5 equals negative 3. Now, here, if I move the positive 5 to the other side of the equal sign, it will move to negative 5. Y equals 3 minus 5. Then y equals negative 2. And here, I'm going to move it by the negative sign too. It will give me y equals negative 3, negative 5, if y is equal to negative 8. Both of these are the answers of this problem. Now here we're going to do the same thing. Take the square root of both sides. If I take the square root of x plus 6 all squared, it will give me simply x plus 6. And this is equal to positive or negative. The square root of 81 is 9. Positive or negative 9. Then I have two equations. X plus 6 equals 9. Or x plus 6 equals negative 9. Now here, x equals 9 minus 6. Because I move it to the other side of the equal sign. And this means that x is equal to 3. And here, x equals negative 9, negative 6. And this is x is equal to negative 15. Here we have x minus 4 all squared equals 56. Now, we're going to do the same thing. Take the square root of both sides. This will leave me with x minus 4 equals positive or negative the square root of 56. Now, 56 is not a perfect square. So, I'm going to look in the perfect squares to see what is the closest number to 56. This we will see that we have the square root of 49, which is equal to 7. And we have the square root of 64, which is equal to 8. Then my number here is something between 7 and 8. We can write it for the moment equals 7.5 maybe more or less. Okay, a positive or negative 7.5. We can do it another way. We can try to simplify to find the square root of 56 in terms of squares. How can we do this? We just take our 56 here. 56 can be divided at least by 2. This will give me 28 divided by 2. This will give me 14. 14 can be divided by 2. This will give me 7. 7 can be divided by 7 only, and this will give me 1. Now, what am I going to do with these numbers? Here I want the square root. The square root of 56 means that I have a small 2 here. So every 2 numbers, I take one of them. If I have here 2 is repeated, so I take only 1 2, and I put it out of the square root. Then I have x minus 4 is equal to positive or negative 2, and the rest, they don't have any pairs, so I keep them inside the square root sign. So root 2 by 7 is 14. It can be written like this, and it can be written like this. Okay, now I have 2 equations. X minus 4 equals 2 root 14, or x minus 4 equals negative 2 root 14. Now, this is x equals 2 root 14 plus 4, and here x is equal negative 2 root 14 plus, and I can leave it like this for the moment, since I didn't use this. If I use this, I can use it, I can just simply, instead of writing 2 root 14, write 7.5 and go on with my problem. We're going to use the same concept. We'll find the square root of both sides. It will leave me with x plus 4 equals positive or negative root 21. We will have 2 problems. We will have x plus 4 equals positive root 21, or x plus 4 equals negative root 21. Then, if I proceed, I will have x equals root 21 minus 4, or x equals negative root 21 minus 4. Okay, I can leave it like this simply, if I don't put a decimal here. Then the other example here, I'm solving quadratic equations by factoring using the distributive property. The distributive property is when I see that I have 2 terms like I have here, I can take a common factor between them. I can take the common factor divided into 2 parts, a number and a letter. Okay, let's begin with the number. Here I can see 4, and here I can see 12. Both can be divided by 4. If my number is 4. Then to my letter, here I can see x squared, and here I can see simply x. Then I take the one with the least power. The one with the least power is x. Then I open a bracket. I write the rest of the problem here inside this bracket. So this will give me 4x squared divided by 4x. This will leave me with x. Minus 12 divided by 4 is 3. And x divided by x is 1. This is my equation. Now, this will give me two solutions. One of the solutions is 4x equals 0, and the other one is x minus 3 equals 0. Then if I proceed with this, it will give me that x is equal to 0, and here x is equal to 3. These are my two solutions. Here I'm going to do the same thing. First, I can see that 18 can be divided by 6 and 6 can be divided by 6. So I take my common factor as 6. Then I have y squared and y. The least is y. I open my bracket. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Y squared divided by y is y. Minus 6y divided by 6y is 1. And I must write the 1. Equals 0. Then y equals 0. Then y is equal to 0. And 3y minus 1 is equal to 0. Then 3y is equal to 1. And y is equal to 1/3. Here I have y can be equal to 0 and can be equal to 1/3. Here, solving quadratic equations by factoring a trinomial. Now, the first one, I have an equation written x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. It must be written in this way so that I can use this process. Okay, here I can't take a common factor because I have only two terms that have an x. The third term doesn't have an x. Only this term and the last term have a 3 hidden in them, and the first term doesn't. So I cannot take a common factor. So I have to use another way. My other way is I make two brackets. I begin by factoring the x squared into the two brackets. So my x squared gives me x times x. This is the first part. Then I look at the leading sign. What is the leading sign? It's the second sign that I have. If it's plus, if my leading sign is plus, then both of the brackets have the same sign. Like what? Like the sign in the middle. Here I have in the middle plus, so I'll put here plus and plus. And I'll forget about it. Now, I'll take this 9 on the side. I'm going to factor the 9 first. It can be 1 times 9, and it can be 3 times 3. These are the factors of 9. Then, beside them, I'm going to see I have here a positive sign. Then I'm going to add 1 plus 9 will give me 10. And I'm going to add 3 plus 3 will give me 6. I'm going to compare what I wrote here with what I have in the middle as the middle term. Here, I will not see a 10, but I will see a 6. So, it means that I'm going to use this part. Here I have 3 times 3. I'm going to put one of the 3's here and 1 there. And this is equal to 0. Then my answer, I will have x plus 3 equals to 0 and x plus 3 equals to 0. It's the same thing. So x is equal to -3. I have here only one solution. Now, let's look at this problem. I'm going to do the same thing. First, I'm going to put my two brackets. By the way, I didn't use the distributive property because I can't see the y except in two of them. and the number 2 is hidden in the other 2. So I have nothing common in the 3 together. So I must use this way. Then y and y. I'm going to look at the leading sign, which is plus. This means that I have both brackets have the same sign, like the sign in the middle, which is negative. So here I can see a negative, and here I can see a negative. Then let's take the last part. Here I have 8. What are the factors of 8? They are 1 times 8. This is the first thing. And 2 times 4. I'm going to add the factors because I have here plus. Here I will get 1 plus 8 is 9, and 2 plus 4 is 6. I look here, I will see that I have the 6. So I'm going to use this part. Here I'm going to put the 4, and here I'm going to put the 2. And all of this is equal to 0. So I have two solutions. I have y minus 4 equal to 0, and I have y minus 2 equal to 0. Then y equals 0 plus 4, which is 4. And here y equals 0 plus 2, which is 2. These are my two solutions. Now here, then I'm going to put my two brackets. I'm going to make this x and x. Here the leading sign is positive, so I'm going to use the middle sign twice, negative and negative. Now I'll take my 16 and find the factors of 16. I have 1 and 16. I have 2 and 8. I have 4 and 4. Now let's test them. I'm going to add them to see what is their sum. 1 plus 16 will give me 17. 2 plus 8 will give me 10. And 4 plus 4 will give me 8. I can see the 10 here, so I'm going to use this one. I'm going to put here my 8 and here my 2. And it doesn't differ because the signs are the same. I can put here the 2 and there the 8. Now here, the same thing of factoring a trinomial, but I have here something different from the last problem, which is the negative sign. Now here I can't find a common factor in the three terms, so I must use this way. I'll divide it into two brackets. I'll have x and x. My leading sign is negative, so I must have this one negative and this one positive. And then I'll begin to test the 8. I have here the factors of 8 are 1 and 8 are 2 and 4. These are the factors of 8. Here I'm going to subtract them because here I have minus. If 8 minus 1 will give me 7, and 4 minus 2 will give me 2. Here I will check. I will see that I have a 2. Then I'm going to use this part. Beside the negative sign, because I have the negative sign here in the middle, beside the negative sign I'm going to put the larger number, which is 4. And beside the positive sign I'm going to put my 2. And this is equal to 0. Then I have my two equations. X minus 4 is equal to 0. And this is x is equal to 4. And then here x plus 2 is equal to 0. Then x is equal to negative 2. Here we're going to proceed with this one. I have my two brackets. I'm going to put y and y. My leading sign is negative, so I have one positive and one negative. Let the first one have the sign of the middle, which is positive, and the second one will be negative. Then I'll take my 18 and test it. 18, 1 and 18, and then I have 2 and 9, then I have 3 and 6. How am I going to test it? I'm going to subtract them because here I have a negative. Then 18 minus 1 is 17. 9 minus 2 is 7. And 6 minus 3 is 3. Here I have 7, so I'm going to use this one. 2 times 9. The big one, I'm going to put it here beside the positive, because here I have the positive in the middle, and the small one, I'm going to put it beside the negative. And this is equal to 0. Then I'll have my two equations, y plus 9 equals 0, and y minus 2 equals 0. Then here y equals negative 9, and y equals 2. Now let's do this one here. Here are my two brackets. Here I have my y and my y. This is negative, then this is like the middle, and this is the opposite sign. I'm going to take my 20, and I'm going to see its factors. I have 20 and 1 first. I have 2 and 10, and I have 4 and 5. Now, here I'm going to subtract them. First, 20 minus 1 is 19. Then 10 minus 2 is 8. And 5 minus 4 is 1. I'm going to check here. Here I need the 1. So I'll take this 1. I'm going to put my larger number here first, after the positive sign, and I'm going to put the smaller number here. Then I have my two solutions, y minus 5 equals 0, and y minus 4 equals 0. Then here y equals negative 5, and y equals 4. Y and y, a negative sign, so negative and positive. I'm going to factor the 24. 24 can be 1/24, can be 2 by 12, can be 3 by 8, can be 4 by 6, nothing else, I guess. It can be 12 by 2. Okay. Now we're going to subtract them. The first one will give me 23. The second one will give me 10. Still, I didn't find my target. The third one will give me 5. And here I can see 5. So I'm going to take this one. The bigger number is 8. I'm going to put it here. And the smaller number is 3. It's going to be here. Equals 0. Then y minus 8 equals 0. Then y equals 8. And y plus 3 equals 0. Then y equals negative 3. Here we're going to solve a quadratic equation by factoring a difference of squares. What's the meaning of this part? Here I have x squared minus 49 only. I don't have an x term. Yep, I can use it. As I did before, I can move the 49 to the other side of the equal sign and make it plus or minus 49, or I can use the difference of squares. How can I use the difference of squares? It's simply putting my two brackets. Here I have minus, and here I have plus. Now, x squared is x by x, and 49 is 7 by 7. The square root of 49 is 7. Then this is called the difference of two squares. Yep. And when I have in my equation, I have a perfect square minus, this must be minus, it can never be plus, minus a perfect square, and this is equal to 0, then I automatically make two brackets. The two are the same, but different in signs. Okay? It's the square root of the first term, which is x, minus the square root of the second term, which is 7, and then I'm going to copy this bracket again here, but instead of minus, I'll make it plus. Then I'll have my two answers, x equal 7 or x equals -7, like the very first one that I used. Now, here I can do the same thing, difference of two squares. By the way, if I want, I can just make it like the first example. 64 equals y squared. So y equals positive or negative square root 64. So y equals positive or -8. And I can use it by the difference of two squares. Here, this is a perfect square, and this is a perfect square. And we have a minus here, so it's legal to use this way. Here, the square root of 64 is 8, and here is another 8. Here, this is y squared, so it's y, and here is another y. This is minus, and this is plus, equal to 0. Then once I have x minus y equal to 0, and then x plus y equal to 0. Then here, negative y is equal to -8, then y is equal to 8. And here, y is equal to -8. Exactly the same, positive or -8. Here, I can do the same thing. I have two perfect squares, and I have minus between them. So I'm going to do one of them with minus and one of them with plus. Now, let's take the square root of this term. The square root of 4 is 2. So I'll have here 2 and 2. Then the square root of y squared is y. Then it will be 2y and 2y. Then the square root of 25 is 5, and here 5. And the square root of x squared is x, and here x. Then I have my two terms. 2y minus 5x equals 0. And here I have 2y plus 5x equals 0. And I leave it like this unless he tells me find either x or y in terms of the other. Okay, now let's do this last one. Here, this is a perfect square, a negative sign, and a perfect square. Here, I'm going to have my two brackets. The square root of 81 is 9, so I have 9 by 9. The square root of x squared is x, so I have x by x. Negative sign, negative, positive. 1 is 1 by 1, equals to 0. Then I have two answers. 9x minus 1 is equal to 0, or 9x plus 1 is equal to 0. So here, x or 9x is equal to 1, and x is equal to 1 over 9, 1/9. And here, I have 9x is equal to -1, or x is equal to -1 over 9. Now, my last slide here, I'm going to use the perfect square trinomial. How can I know if this is a perfect square trinomial or not? Now, this I'm going to factor simply. If I want to factor it, I can factor it simply. But to find a perfect square trinomial is sometimes easier. How can I find this perfect square trinomial? Now, I must look here at my equation. Here, my coefficient of the first term is 1. So I won't bother about the first term. I'm going to look at the second term. Half of the 6 is 3. يبقى 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Then I'm going to take this 3 and square it. It's going to give me 9. يبقى again, I'll tell you what I did exactly. I'm going to take the middle term and divide it by 2. يبقى 6 divided by 2 will give me 3. Then I'm going to take this 3 and square it and put it at the end. Then 3 squared is equal to 9. There is always a positive sign here. This was my first step. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to simply make. What am I going to write here? I'm going to take the square root of the first term, which is x. I'll put the sign in the middle, which is positive. I'm going to take the square root of the last term, which is 3, or this term, ala tool, is 3. And then I'm going to put squared here, is equal to 0. Then x plus 3 is equal to 0 when I take the square root of both sides. Then x is equal to negative 3. Again, I'm going to repeat what I did here. Now, I'm going to check to see if this is a perfect square trinomial or not. The first term is a perfect square, y squared. The last term has a plus here, then it's fine. The middle term, I divide this by 2, it will give me 4. And then I'm going to square the 4, it will give me 16. Then this is a perfect square. Then I can simply write it this way. I'll take the square root of the first term, which is y. I'm going to use the sign in the middle, which is negative. I'm going to take the square root of the last term, or this number immediately, which is 4. And I'm going to square this, equal to 0. Then y minus 4 equals 0, and y equals to 4. Here, the last one here, I'm going to do the same test. Here I have a positive sign. Here I have a perfect square. Here in the middle I have negative 2. If I divide it by 2, it will give me 1. 1 squared is 1 still. Then this is a perfect square trinomial. So I normally here write y minus 1 all squared equals 0. Then y minus 1 equals 0. Then y equals 1. And here I'll do the same thing. I'll test it first. This is a perfect square. This is a plus sign. Here, if I divide 3 by 2, it will give me 3 over 2. If I square 3 over 2, if I square it, it will give me 9 over 4. Then this is a perfect square. I'm going to do like this. Here, I'm going to put my y. Here, I'll put a positive sign. Here, I'm going to take the square root of the last term, or the term when I divided it by 2. 3 over 2. And here, I'll put square. Then, this is equal to 0. Then, y plus 3 over 2 equals 0. Then, y equals negative 3 over 2. Only one solution. All of these have only one solution because they are perfect square trinomials. Thank you.